U.S. Special Forces will soon be deployed to the east of the country to help fight militants. He said the force would stay for several weeks, supporting the Congolese army in the campaign against Allied Defense Forces, the ADF, initially from Uganda, and has been blamed for dozens of massacres in the last 3 years. Tshisekedi said in a statement that the troops would also provide support to the guardians of the Virunga and Garamba national parks. The parks have become a sanctuary for militant forces. He said the troops would be present for several weeks in eastern Congo, where martial law was established in May to try and end decades of bloodshed. U.S. Ambassador to the DRC, Mike Hammerstead, said that the Special Operations Forces arrived in Congo's capital, Kinshasa, on Friday to conduct an assessment of a future Congolese counter-terrorism team. Well, we're now joined by African Affairs analyst from Channel Africa and producer there, Nixon Katembo. Nixon, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you.
Always good to join you, Peter, and your viewers at home.
The east of the DRC, always something going on there, and sadly it's the same stories that play out over and over again. Perhaps the only variation is the intensity of activity from time to time. Just how bad is the situation at the moment that it's been deemed necessary to get U.S. troops?
Well, I don't think that the situation have changed. Of course, people have been dying every day. Some of the reports of death that are not brought to light in the media or media organizations across the world, but even in local media where you hear at least 20 people have died, like just a week when we received the report of 20 people dying in the side of Kainama and Eringeti side in the Beni region. So that tells you how dire the situation is, although Congo being at disadvantage of perhaps the language barrier for international media organizations, especially those that broadcast in English, wouldn't necessarily have an interest in understanding what is going on there. But the bringing in of U.S. Special Forces are very intriguing at this time. One wonder, where were they when the UN peacekeeping force, which is about 19,000, boots on the ground, including over 20,000 Congolese soldiers are deployed there. What are these special forces are going to do to make a difference to the already dire situation that is happening there?
I mean, it's pretty complex what's going on out there in the eastern part of the country. Do you think that these special forces can make a difference? They talk about support and training, that perhaps that's where they might be able to be a little bit more effective.
I think, Peter, we have to get away from this narrative that comes in disguise of a diplomatic assistance to the Congolese people. We know for the fact that the U.S. Special Forces have been in the region training the Ugandan army, training the Rwandan army, and we know for the fact that those countries are major players in the conflict in the DRC since 1996. So to make it seem to appear that now they are coming at this point, I don't buy that idea personally, for a person who have been following the situation in the region. For me, what I would say, and I dare say to challenge anyone who will bring any other counter narrative to what I'm saying, is that the U.S. is there to protect its interests. We know for the fact that there have been geopolitical realignment in the region where China was getting much influence during the Kabila regime, where some of the Chinese companies were taking over. And we know for the fact that in the region where they are coming from, under the guise to protect the Virunga National Park, is where there was much discovery of oil in Lake Albert. And China has been dealing with trying to get concession of the oil there, including when Tullow Oil left after doing the concession of the Albertine region. So you see that the U.S. what is trying to do is trying to protect those interests. Of course, further in the south of the Congo, in the Katanga region, it was edged out the Freeport McMoran company, that is the U.S. Based company, including another company from Canada. They were owning mining, cobalt mining in the DRC, but that was sold to the Chinese. Whereas the Congolese government was owning about 20% of that cobalt mining. But with the new administration under Tshisekedi, you see now the U.S. aggressively getting inside the Congo and using the security card to assist the Congo in edging out the Chinese influence in the Congo. And this is what it's all about. Someone should not tell you that the U.S. Special Forces are there to assist the Congolese people. If they indeed were there to assist the Congolese people, I believe this war would have ended a long time ago, because I remember in early 2000 and the late 2000, General Kip Ward, who was then the commander of the Africa Command, which is the U.S. Army based in Stuttgart, Germany, and have an outpost in Djibouti, visited Rwanda, and he was training alongside the Rwandan army there. If the idea was to bring stability in the Great Lakes region, and more in particular in the Congo, when the war was raging at the time, this is when the U.S. should have intervened. But the question is, where are they intervening now? I don't think that they are going to make any change, and that is a personal view from my own perspective as a person who have been following the geopolitics of the region. And mind you, there are competing interests in the region currently we speak. We know for the fact that the oil pipeline is being built from Uganda in the Albertine region to Tanzania. That was inaugurated by President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania and Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda. And much of the oil that is going to run through that pipeline, 70% of it is in the DRC. So any competing companies and any geostrategic calculation that may be done by a major power in that region have to look at those vested interests in securing the necessary minerals that outflow of the DRC, not necessarily that they are going to protect the civilian of the DRC or even fight the ADF. As I have alluded before, that the ADF have significantly weakened. Its leader, Jamil Mukulu, was arrested and is in incarceration in Uganda at Luzira prison. So this idea that the special forces are coming, it's nothing new. I would recall that in July, on 19th of July in 2014, there was a plane of the U.S. Special Forces that were flying from Entebbe in Uganda, which landed on a road in Mityana in middle western Uganda on a journey to South Sudan. So it's nothing new for the U.S. Special Forces really to be in the region, Peter.
All right. Now, the ADF is getting the lion's share of the blame for the insurgency in the area, but it's not that simple, is it?
Of course, it's not that simple, because the ADF has been there. Of course, we cannot deny that the ADF has not been there. But to the extent of which you have militaries from different countries focusing on the same thing that is not ending, when we have to wonder, what is it really special about the ADF? The UN is there. They have drones. Kenya has just deployed over 1,000 troops there. And we know that Kenya is the major financial hub in the Great Lakes region and East Africa. And you know that Kenya has a vested interest in expanding its reach in Eastern DRC, more especially with its larger banks such as Kenya Commercial Bank. So you have Rwanda, who has had a free reign in getting inside the DRC with its special forces since the President Tshisekedi came to power. So you have these different armies and the competing interests going in just one small region, which is, by the way, less than the Northern Cape here in South Africa. So why is it that this militarization of the small region, yet we know its resources and how it is endowed with so many resources, but to be sure that they are securing the region, I don't think that that is the whole point idea here.
All right. So what next then? What can President Tshisekedi do to deal with this insurgency once and for all?
I think what is needed here, and I have said it before, is to build Congolese institutions, to build a national Republican army that is going to deal with securing the borders as a first constitutional mandate of any state. And for that, unfortunately for the Congo, you have an army that is fragmented, and you have all this influence coming from there. The outside, you have the UN. The UN cannot exist without security in the Congo. In other words, if there's peace in the Congo, then the mandate of the UN is inexplicable in that sense. So you have all these other Kenyan soldiers, Ugandan soldiers building, by the way, a military base. For the first time, an African country building a military base in another African country. That tells you how much, what is at stake. It is not necessarily about the Congo. This is about some vested interest within the region and at a greater length, the geopolitics across the world, for you to understand the strategic position in which Congo finds itself with its mineral resources, which are, by the way, necessary for the development of current international development around industries. So I think for Tshisekedi, unfortunately, he seems to not understand the role of the Congo in the global geopolitics, and not only in the global geopolitics, but also in the global economic development at a level of electronic development, such as your component, including, the cobalt for current modern technologies. So if you have a president like Tshisekedi who do not understand these basics of international politics, then you can't even imagine to think how is going to solve the problem that is such of a nature in his own country. Because for me, the president and whoever advised him, they seems far away from the reality of what is happening in the region.
Nixon Katembo, thank you so much indeed. Always good talking to you. Merci beaucoup. À bientôt.
Merci.